welcome to another edition of Disability Insurance Law TV. My name is Gregory Dell. I'm an attorney with the law firm of attorneys Dell and Schaefer, and today I'm joined by attorney Rachel Alters and attorney Stephen Jessup. And in today's episode, we are going to discuss the Liberty Mutual Group, also known as Liberty Life Insurance as well. And we're going to specifically discuss the way in which they handle long-term disability insurance claims, as well as some recent claim denials of long-term disability insurance claims that have taken place around the country. Just before we get started, I want to let you know a little bit about the financial history of Liberty Mutual. Liberty Mutual is a very healthy, from a financial perspective. Last year they had over $31 billion in revenues and just over $1 billion in profits. They have well over $100 billion in assets that they manage. So you're dealing with an extremely large company that obviously has all of the resources to evaluate long-term disability claims and fight long-term disability claims if that need should arise. Something about my personal opinion, especially about Liberty Mutual, I find that they're one of the top companies in denying long-term disability claims, and that's just from we handle cases for companies that have long-term disability policies all over the country, and I find, especially recently, that a lot of the denials have been with Liberty Mutual, probably more so than any other company. Most of the Liberty Mutual disability policies are ERISA governed policies, which means they're group disability policies provided by the employers. So Liberty Mutual tends to be a company that is taking advantage of ERISA, which I've said in many shows that we've done that I think ERISA is a terrible law that takes advantage of claimants as it is. So Liberty Mutual has jumped on that bandwagon, and you see a lot of denials from Liberty Mutual. So Steve and Rachel, I think I've prepared some cases today to discuss, whether it's cases that our firm has personally handled or cases that have been handled around the country. And Steve, what do you have to discuss today?
Greg, I was looking around cases around the country. I've handled quite a few Liberty Mutual appeals, but one case in particular, and I think this happens with a lot of people that call and they ask once they get the denial. An MO, it seems to be with Liberty Mutuals, that they may also handle the short-term disability claims handling, even though the assets may come out of the company. So it's a situation where Liberty Mutual will approve it. Then when you're doing that rollover into the long-term, that's when the denial comes in. And we get a lot of calls, they denied me, I requested the claim file, I want to send it to you. And obviously with the risk, they give you 180 days, 6 months to file your appeal. It seems like a long time, especially when you're not receiving money. But this case I found specifically is part in showing how important it is to make sure when you're requesting the claim file, you really want to kind of have an attorney on board with getting certain information. And this one case I found is a rather recent one in New York, only a couple years old, where there's so many factors in this case, but something that was really kind of shocking to me is that they sent this lady to an independent medical evaluation. She's physically examined by the doctor, which a lot of companies nowadays really aren't even doing. And this doctor says, listen, I think she's totally disabled. He writes a report to Liberty. Liberty's not happy with it. They want follow-up questions to him. They send it with the job description, because he didn't have the job description when he did the first go-around. And he sticks to his guns. Well, they end up approving her for a little bit, but then having a peer review doctor look over to court along with 3 separate video surveillance events. And that doctor then uses the IME report to say, oh, she can work. She's not disabled. When requesting the documentation, Liberty didn't turn over the surveillance. They didn't even turn over the follow-up questions to the IME doctor, where the doctor reiterates his opinion is that she's being totally disabled. So it's basically a process of them hiding information in the claim file, saying that it wasn't asked for with enough specificity.
And it was an ERISA file where they're required to give over the whole claim file after denial? Exactly.
So eventually when it gets into court, the judge says you breached your fiduciary duty. You didn't provide her with a full review because she didn't have the opportunity to respond to this. Well, then the problem becomes now we're in this case 3 years after the initial filing, and the judge then remands it back saying, well, if the record's incomplete because counsel should have a chance to argue Liberty's evidence in its entirety. So the process is even longer just because an attorney who wasn't really versed in what to ask for, what to look for, and knows what the insurance company usually does, wasn't able to get that information so readily available. And in going through and filing their appeals, one of my recent ones, I filed the appeal quite some time ago. And Liberty Mutual has tendency to try to drag things out. They want more and more and more. And unfortunately with ERISA, sometimes you got to be careful, because if you do necessarily say, no, we're not going to do this, it may be used against you later by the judge saying, well, the insurance company then acted reasonable. And that's usually what I see with Liberty Mutual. It just seems that they will put you through the ringer a lot more than some of the other carriers, especially recently on their group policies and group claims, and then deny the claim, especially in that transition point from short-term to long-term disability.
I also find that their denial letters, whether it's short-term or long-term disability, are super short and don't have a lot of information in them. You know that the ERISA regulations require them to tell a claimant as to the information that they're missing in order to basically perfect their claim or prove that they're disabled. And I think, Rachel, you had a case you were working on recently where the claimant came to us after they were denied their long-term disability claim, then you worked on the appeal, and I think it was on fibromyalgia. If you can tell us a little bit about some of the problems you've been experiencing with that case.
Sure. The problem in that, this was a claimant that had severe fibromyalgia, and the problem in the case was when they initially denied her, they pointed out in the denial letter that the reason they were denying her was because she didn't have a neuropsychological test. That was one of their major reasons, and the functions, their limitations and restrictions weren't listed. So what happened was we sent her for a neuropsychological test and had a pretty thorough one done. There was cognitive dysfunction was found, and they completely disregarded that. They didn't even mention that in their denial of the appeal. They also completely disregarded the fact that she had a functional capacity evaluation where she wasn't even able to perform the first day of testing. She was in so much pain. And they don't mention it in the denial letter at all.
Okay, so she was originally denied her claim, and they said there's no neuropsych exam, there's no functional capacity. She goes back out and gets a neuropsych exam at their request. She gets a functional capacity exam at their request. Both of those show limitations.
Yes.
And then you send all that information to the carrier, and then they respond and say, we still don't think she's disabled.
In fact, they don't even mention that we even performed those tests. And they said, well, in fact, she doesn't have any restrictions and limitations because the doctor shouldn't give her restrictions and limitations. They should actually have her using her muscles more, doing as much activity as possible, and therefore she can go back to work full-time because that would benefit her, even though she's in so much pain that she could hardly move.
Okay, so
it doesn't make any sense.
So her treating doctors are saying you have all these restrictions and limitations, and they're saying, no, you should be doing more activities?
Exactly.
Okay. So what's super frustrating about this particular claimant's case is that now she's basically stuck in a position where her only remedy is to go ahead and file a lawsuit in federal court.
Correct.
And what's especially frustrating is now she's gone over a year with no income coming in. She's got a company that basically did a botched job on reviewing her file and didn't give her a fair review. A lawsuit will be filed. The likelihood is that she's going to win, but it's going to be a year and a half, 2 years that she's going to go with no income coming in, and Liberty Mutual can basically get away with this, with the only consequences being that at the end of the day, they have to pay her benefits, and possibly, if the judge decides to award them, pay her attorney's fees.
Correct.
So, but the comment about what you said, the doctor said she should do more activities, is really, really concerning and really embarrassing for Liberty Mutual.
Of course, and her treating physicians told her specifically that she should not be doing any activity, that she should rest as much as possible because all the pain that she has causes severe fatigue.
And they didn't examine her either, right?
They never saw her, they never examined her, they had one of their hired doctors look at her records and say, this is what we think she needs to do more activity.